Hi guys, welcome to this video. My name is Laura from Shamanic Self, and these are going to be random concepts just thrown at you. So I'm going to share some thoughts on certain matters. I'm also going to share some screenshots on them too. And let's just start off with supernatural, because that's literally the one I had just picked out. So here we go. This is Unreal Fitness. I just came across this quite recently, but supposedly it's been around for a little while. Um, wow, this is basically an app called Unreal Fitness Supernatural, and it's supposedly the virtual reality fitness leader. It's making a splash with the launch of its new campaign, Unreal Fitness, the award-winning VR fitness app now under hold tight, Meta's ownership aims to bring VR, virtual reality, to the mainstream, transforming the exercise experience. You can get a monthly subscription. You can get an annual subscription. Right now, as I'm recording this, supposedly it costs $9.99 a month or $99.99 annually. What a number, isn't that? So kind of switch that around. It's like 66666. Anyhow, this is a new app, and basically you can do a 20 or 30-minute workout in Supernatural. People are saying it's easily matched the amount of cardio they were getting from their morning spin bike in real life. Just keep that in mind, or on their treadmill or in other workouts. And that their heart rates often went over 140 to 150 beats per minute. So this came out, I think, September 2023, or maybe it was announced around that time. And then November 2023 is when it made another splash. I just grabbed these screenshots off of their website. And basically people are having this virtual reality headset and they're transformed into this reality. So they're seeing a mountain or anything like that. Yeah, this is just the absurdity of AI and what they want to create. I do want to point this out. And I just came across this in one of these ad commercials, just randomly, wasn't even looking for it. Just popped up in front of a YouTube video, I think. So if you have tried this out, let us know. But I don't think people who are watching this channel are really interested in trying these things out because you want to experience the real life. And when I just saw this, I saw this commercial, I was like, wow, of course. So with these past 4 years where everything is being uploaded into the cloud, where everything is all about meta, 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 of course, this all fits into it. And it's just itching while I'm saying that. They don't want you to speak out on this, right? But I do know this has been going on for a while. And even like 10, 15 years ago, you were at the gym. When you were doing this machine, like, or whatever, just even running, doing the treadmill running at the machine. Even I think it's like back 2007, 2005, 2006, whatever. Even then, you could already just dive into the screen that was in front of you. Like every machine had a screen, of course, because everyone has to be in their own little world. It's not bad enough that there's already screens all over the gym, all over the fitness center. And this is back in the day when I used to go to the gym. I haven't gone to the gym in a long time. I don't enjoy the gym at all. I don't enjoy a whole bunch of people being bunched up into a room with all the testosterone, because obviously you're going to have way more men than women. And what I did enjoy when I went to the gym is classes. I enjoyed the Zumba classes. I enjoyed the spinning workouts. I really enjoyed the Pilates classes, all of that. But I never enjoyed being bunched up with a whole bunch of random strangers, even if I knew them over time, and having them watch whatever machine I do or whatever exercise I do. It really never resonated with me. And I think there are certainly other ways we can stay fit. But even back in those days, which at this point is almost 20 years ago, I just remember always having to stare at the stupid screen that every machine had. And this is when you do the warm up or you're trying to warm down afterwards, right? You kind of just cool off after your gym session. So you're on your treadmill or whatever you choose, and then you're supposed to dive into something, a different reality, like you're pretending you're running up a mountain or whatever. It's not a VR headset that they had back then, but it was attached to every machine so that your eyes were glued to it unless you turned the screen off. And you kind of wanted to keep the screen on because you wanted to monitor your heart rate, the calories, whatever you were really there for in the gym, whatever you were burning, you just want to see how fit you are. And I think you could just switch around with the settings until that landscape disappeared. But even back in the days, I remember how irritating it was for me to actually see a fake mountain that I was supposedly climbing when I was doing one of the machines, like the treadmill or whatever. I'm like, this is not real. Like, if I wanted to be in a mountainscape, I would literally just go outside and run, even if the weather's not so great. But you get the idea, right? So now, over these past 4 years, or possibly even before that, they're really pushing this entire VR reality, and you don't even have to be among people anymore, like even go to a gym. You just do all of this at home. Everyone's in their own little world doing their workout, and they think they're somewhere in Iceland or somewhere in Norway or somewhere in Australia, like wherever you want to be, really, or somewhere on a different planet, right? So very interesting stuff that I thought, yeah, why not share this? I also want to say my internet was out these past few days. So it started on Friday evening, just as I was starting to record something really important. Of course, boom, internet out, and the entire area, entire neighborhood was out for like 4 or 5 hours. Doesn't sound that much, doesn't sound very long at all. But you know, for a city of this magnitude, it kind of does add up a little bit. So it was a bit longer than expected. Not sure what happened, never got an explanation from the company I'm with, but it was out. It has been out a few times over the past few years that I've had them. And I know if you just switch over, because there's different ones, you know, you have Verizon, you have different ones here. So even if I were to switch over to a different provider, even they had issues over these past few years, supposedly, because I have neighbors who have different providers. I'm like, oh, this is so interesting. Like this New York City area, or just areas in general, are starting to have issues with the internet when people rely on the internet the most, basically. So that happened this past weekend. Not sure if that happened with you as well, wherever you are. Okay, let's move on. I want to go through some concepts. And before that, I want to pull up this Big Bang comment that I read. So the person saying, they didn't comment on one of my videos or any of my feeds, but I came across this online. And the person saying, I have a theory, call me crazy. Oh, don't we all know what it sounds like when we're called crazy, right? He goes on to say, when the Big Bang happened, it continued throughout space, causing multiple Big Bangs, which created multiple solar systems, only they are in different years than us. And I want to say different timelines, even. Let's say we are in the middle of this Big Bang system. It would mean to the east of us, there are solar systems in years far beyond us. And to the west of us, there are systems in years far earlier than us. Am I totally nuts to think this? No, I don't think so. I think it's definitely one explanation for the Big Bang. I do think, you know, just like what regular science is disclosing to us, which we all know, they're not disclosing even 5% of what they know. They're giving us like very, very little. But what they're saying is, if a star died millions and millions of years ago, we wouldn't even know that it died, because the rays of that star, or whatever it is, you know, there's something that has completely been extinguished, that is still reaching us even from here. Now, I personally do think whatever we're seeing around us, like the entire overlay system, the entire sky, it can be a few different things. First of all, I still think we're in this underground cave reality. Some people call it a dome reality. I don't necessarily agree with that 100%. I think we were kind of put underground in one of these timeline resets. And I do have a video on that. I'll link it here while I'm talking about that. That's from about a year ago or so. So I do think we're somehow in this underground cave reality. If you look at caves that are already in Vietnam, they are huge and massive, and they all of a sudden have steps in them. So it's similar to where we are now. You know, we think it's the sun, but it's not. It's an artificial something. We have at least 2, 3, or even more suns, different lights, LED lights that we're dealing with. And the sun has changed substantially over the past 30, 40 years, which is also why people remember the sun in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Oh, it was so different than the sun is now. It's because they literally switched out the light bulb, just like they're trying to switch out our light bulbs and switch us all over to LED and the artificial light, the cold light. There's no warmth in the newer lights, unlike the lights that existed I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 100 years ago. If you look at street lamps from 100 years ago or in the 40s, 50s, huge difference from what existed afterwards. And I think they started introducing this LED stuff in the 80s. Is that the era? Is it 70s, 80s, whenever the neon came around? I feel this entire neon era ruined a lot. I'm not saying this just because I hate it. I actually like a lot of things like the style they had back then. But I feel once the neon came out and like all of that other electronic stuff, like electronic guitars, electric guitars, a lot of that was already clear. Oh, they're trying to put us in this alternate reality that is AI, artificial, very much inorganic. But of course, they've been trying to do that for a really long time. So I thought this comment on the Big Bang was very interesting. But I also think we're not where we think we are. And I think whatever we see, the sky that's around us, it's an overlay, it's a projection they're putting on us. So all of these weird constellation, oh, this is the big bear, the big whatever. It's just like a projector they're shining onto us for us to like kind of remember, oh, that's maybe where we have come from before, maybe where we had our parallel past lives. But I think if you look at the sky in different areas, it looks different in Australia, it looks different in Germany, it looks different here in the US. It's a different projection that they're putting on us in different areas that we are. I'm not going to go into this, whether the earth is flat or not, because that's just a huge discussion in and of itself. But if we're kind of like on this plane because we're in this cave reality, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense why we would see the moon differently in just depending on the area that you're in this earth realm or the world, wherever the globe, right? Whatever they say we are. And then in addition, the firmament, it's always blue. And so some people are saying, okay, that could be water that's above us. So if you just kind of puncture through that, we would go straight through water. And then if we break through that water, we would actually break to the real surface of it. And also a very interesting theory. And I think there's something to it for sure. Because if we are in this underground cave reality, we literally just have to break through something. And whatever that is, like maybe we are really in the Earth's crust or we're in something similar to that, just for a lack of a better world. Better word and world, maybe world as well. Okay, let me go through some other notes that I really wanted to talk about. So internet outage was one. A friend of mine recently went to Israel and she said Israel is empty, completely empty. So if you ever want to see those huge sites with no tourists, you don't have to stand in line to see the tomb of Jesus or any of that for 2-3 hours or even 4 hours. If you ever want to see those sites, visit Israel right now because no one's going there for obvious reasons. And I'm not saying this because I'm pro Gaza, pro Israel, pro whatever. You know my standpoint on that. I had a few videos on both what Gaza really means, it's hidden treasure and all of that. But I'm really saying this for the sake of if you want to dig into what that land holds, and that land is in that, I mean, it's called Israel right now, but obviously all of that used to be together, Jordan, Israel, Gaza, Egypt, all of that used to be one and the same before it was split up and divided less than 100 years ago. If you really want to dig into the energetic components of those lands, now would be the perfect time for that. I'm very tempted because I'm like, wow, walking through those areas and streets and no one is there, how powerful for you to actually, from an energetic standpoint, for you to be able to feel that energy. Because when I was there a year ago, which I had a video on that, it was so hard to feel anything really other than the information that was coming through. And that was mostly around Jerusalem, which, yeah, I can't imagine how powerful it must feel right now. Okay, so much to that. I don't want to hate on Athens again, but a friend of mine visited Athens recently. So it's kind of like when she was on her way to Israel, there was this layover in Athens. And I noticed once again how much I actually hate Athens after seeing her video or pictures of Athens. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't get over my hate for this city. And I already started feeling really bad about it. But to be honest with you, there was this other guy on YouTube who posted a video a few weeks ago. And this is like an expat couple, an expat guy. who basically was saying Athens was their least favorite city to retire in because the longer they were in Athens, the more of a culture shock they had. And these are people that were there for like a month. And I was literally only there for 3-4 days and three full nights. And I was already really, really turned off by it. But it makes a lot of sense to me because the Greek culture really is not easy. And the longer you're in it, I'm not talking about Cyprus or other parts of Greece even, but the longer you're in it, especially Athens, because it's such a chaotic city energetically, the more confused you get. And I really do find what I already said in a previous video, Athens is a soul trap. I really do find that very strongly because the longer you're there, the more confused you get, the more energetically splintered up you get. I'm not talking about other parts of Greece. I'm not hating on Greece overall. I actually like the Greek culture a lot. I mean, you know, I love Cyprus, which I know it's not Greek, but they have a similar mentality, at least in the southern part. But for me personally, Athens was too much even. You know, I always felt like something was out there to bite me, like some entities were trying to get to me. So I thought that video that he posted was really interesting because they really couldn't warm up to Athens either. And I already felt bad. I was like, oh no, am I the only one who hates Athens here? But no, absolutely not. So that made me feel a little bit better. Okay. Now I actually want to go into something entirely different. And that is the Midnight Library. I'm not sure if you guys know this book or not, but my friend actually read this book recently and he posted something about it online, which I found so interesting. So I want to read the synopsis that he gave a pretty good one, but I want to read the synopsis that's actually provided on theblinkist.com. And this is the book, Midnight Library. I've never read it. I'm really intrigued to read it after going through the overall plot summary, though. Okay, so I'm just going to read what they provide online. And basically, it's about this woman or girl. Nora is now 35. She is in her room scrolling through other people's happy lives when there's a knock at the door. At first, she's pleased to see him. It's Ash, a guy who once asked her out, but she turned down because she was already in a relationship. Perhaps he's going to ask her again. But no, he has bad news. He's discovered her cat dead in the street. Nora knows she should be feeling emotions like pity and despair, but instead she finds herself feeling something quite different, envy. The next day, Nora's life goes from bad to worse. She gets fired from her job. She walks around the town musing about her life. She thinks about her ex, Dan, who just jilted 2 days before they were due to get married. She meets her brother Joe's best friend, Ravi. The three of them, he used to play in a band and all of that until Nora quit. And he's still bitter about all that. And she sees that another friend has not called her even though he was in town. So, you know, long story short, like I don't even know why they wrote all of this in the synopsis, but she just feels everyone would be better off without her. There are other things that happen, like with her neighbor, her sister, all of that. And so that evening, she writes a suicide note and takes an overdose. Then Nora finds herself in unfamiliar surroundings. There's a building full of books with a librarian who resembles a younger version of Mrs. Elm. She learns that she's in a place between life and death called the Midnight Library. Mrs. Elm tells her that from here, she can move between her infinite possible lives and may be able to find a life worth living. Mrs. Elm shows her a book called The Book of Regrets, which contains all the things Nora wishes she's done or not done. Nora is overwhelmed by it. Mrs. Elm encourages her to visit some alternate lives to find out who she really is and what she wants. And one of those is supposedly her wanting to be like an Olympic swimmer or an athlete. So she goes down that road and all of a sudden she's this huge popular person. And another one is Nora regretting leaving Dan and not working together towards achieving the dream of owning a country pub. And then Mrs. Elm hands Nora a book. She reads the first line and she's suddenly standing outside the pub, the Three Horseshoes. So, you have a few different sections of the book. Once again, I haven't read it yet, but it sounds so interesting. And it's not really giving away the ending of this book, by the way. But you have where 16-year-old Nora has many possibilities ahead of her. And Mrs. Elm compares these to the moves on the chessboard. 19 years later, when she's 35, when Nora's 35, Nora arrives in that midnight library. And the version of Mrs. Elm there explains that each book in the library contains a life Nora hasn't led as a result of even minor decisions she's made. This is just so intriguing to me because it kind of like really messes up with your mind when you think about, like, this is exactly what I'm calling the potential that we have, right? And I even had a different video on that, how we had all these potentials from an early age on. We have all these potentials, and we have this wide open path of potentials, like every single path. As we get older, though, it gets more narrow and more narrow, due to mostly the people around us wanting something else, society, our parents, our teachers, and them trying to put that in our heads. Oh, you're not worthy of becoming this doctor, that, or maybe it's the other way around. They want you to become a doctor, but you want to be an artist, so you're not worthy of this, not worthy of that. And so kind of narrows down until you only find yourself on a handful of different paths that you really want to take, even though you still have all of those potentials somewhere. And so this entire concept of the book of regrets, and what if I had made that decision? What if I had not married that person? Or what if I had married that person? What if I have moved there and whatever? It's just extremely intriguing. And my friend compared it to The Alchemist in a way. So his take on it is basically, it's just books that change your life forever. So, with Nora being depressed and obsessed herself with regrets and everything, it can really get you thinking for sure. But I also find when you think about these concepts for too long, trying to find alternate versions of your life and finding the one where you truly belong, I do think we're always able to access those, especially when you go down the energy route and you tap into all these alternate parallel lives, like in the astral specifically, like in the astral is really when those open up to you. I think we always have access to those once we open ourselves up to that possibility, but we also have to just be here where we are right now. And so, however, I do think this book is extremely interesting. And if anyone has read it, definitely comment below. The first time I came across it was literally, earlier this month. And I thought it was, wow, mind blowing. Might help someone right now. I'm not really sure, but yeah, it's just one of those books that maybe we need, right? As opposed to all this other virtual reality crap that they want to push onto us. There's one more thing. A few weeks ago, I got a comment on the nervous system and regulating the nervous system, which I really want to share with you. So I think this is from Mystic Monetization. And they are saying, try some vagus nerve reset subliminals to calm the nervous system. American ginseng C60, passion flower tea, lowers stress levels, increase energy. Many nootropics, nootropics, are also helpful. Phenyl and Fazo from racetam family. Fazo in studies is shown to help with ADHD. Our brains are rotting, meaning neurons are being destroyed by EMF, especially the hippocampus. And Arthur Furstenberg has an excellent book on EMF damages. So I had to look him up. I think he has had books since the 70s or 80s. And I also saw that he's actually being sued either by the New Mexico state or the Santa Fe area for something with EMF and, the entire cell phone tower. Like he didn't want those up in the area that he was in. And so he was trying to combat that. And I think there's like a lawsuit against him right now because of that from all these huge entities and parties. So that was quite interesting to me as well. I've never really come across his work though, so I can't really speak on him, but I'm sure you can look that up. So that was just a comment that I find might be helpful for some people who are dealing with that right now. Let me see. Let me go through my notes real quick. Oh, I think Scotty Boy mentioned Dreamscape, the movie as well, similar to how our dreams can be intercepted with. That came out before Inception, which was a Leonardo DiCaprio movie from 2010. So the one from Dreamscape is 1984. Haven't looked into that yet, but sounds very interesting. One thing that I have wanted to point out is I was thinking about this entire concept of being psychic. And for me, what I've just come to the conclusion is being psychic literally just means being tuned into all these different frequencies, call them radio stations. There's really nothing special or a real gift. I've never understood the hype of people following these huge showroom psychics or just even all these psychics on YouTube who are just randomly giving readings out or who are just randomly predicting all these events that never come true anyhow. But what I personally find, and we're talking about, the hundreds and 2,000, 200,000, 1 million subscribers that these people have. We're not talking about a channel like this one, but not yet, at least. But what I find is some people are just more attuned to their own radio station that they want to listen to due to practice, empathy, past lives, etc. And it's kind of like viewing a person's bird's eye view, like some of these remote viewers do, and tapping into all these different timelines and outcomes. But that's exactly why the future is also so iffy, because we literally create our future and they don't want us to know that, especially right now. Like we have so much power to create our future more than ever before. In my opinion, more than we did 10 years ago, more than we did possibly 20 years ago too. I wasn't really into this like 20, 30 years ago. I was a bit too young for that. But I do have to say, over these past few years, I've noticed, wow, we can create so much. And what's that one quote? The best way to predict the future, create it. Like, don't listen to these whatever predictions, like these psychic predictions. Oh yeah, he's gonna come back. Oh, this and that. No. Create your future. That's what's the best way to predict it, because there's so much involved in it. There's so much opinion changing, action changing, anything changing really, even for these huge futures like the 2020 timeline. Most people never got that right. Some people were predicting it 2024 and beyond. Others never even predicted it ever. And half a year before it happened, I got this one version of it being like, oh, the real estate market is going to collapse. Why was it going to collapse? Well, because of all of this. Did I get that? Not necessarily. I don't think anyone could have really comprehended what 2020 was going to be about, to be honest with you. But that is something I did get like half a year before, and now it makes a whole lot of more sense. And I also mentioned that on the other channel, by the way. The blood types. Okay, one comment on the blood types. Another thought that I had was, are we tapped into the collective blood type of our own blood type? So let's just say you're type A, you're type B, or you're type 0 or O. Well, okay, if you're type A, maybe you're tapped into that overall collective that has that same blood type. But what does that exactly mean? I'm not 100% sure yet, but maybe there's some trauma that's associated with this blood type. And that's why they're keeping us in these separate blood types too. Just another thought. What I've noticed, I have an old computer and I had to pull that up again recently over these past few months. The old computer date, just because it had never been turned on for like over a year or two, somehow it was still set to a certain date, which was November 15th, I think. And so this is back like in January or February. And I'm just like, wow, maybe we're not even in January. Maybe we're still somewhere stuck in October and November, and they're keeping us on this timeline. And I also think the perception of our time has changed a lot from 2020 even, like when I go back, this is 1.5 years ago from when I'm recording this. But when I go back, even in 2022, I just feel I had so much more time then. And that's kind of missing right now. Which, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, like, over hundreds of years or so, that's not even that long ago, right? So, I mean, I was recording, I think back then, 18 months ago, I was recording like what, 4 to 6 hours a day of content if I wanted to, like, course material or whatever. And now, absolutely no energy. It is crazy, you guys. There's so much more to talk about, like eco frames, mortgage, and all of that. I think I'll keep that for a future video. And I hope this helped. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Comment below if you have any comments. And see you in the next one. Until then, bye, guys.